So today, I thought we'd check out Serbia, since last week we checked out Bulgaria. Because they're equally as different. We're starting as a republic now, instead of a regency. I'm gonna turn that a little more down. I actually managed to brew coffee and actually keep it, which is pretty cool. Alright, so we have a really tiny army. That's what, 4 divisions? And last time I think we checked it out, we are under some debuffs. We've got Treaty of Vartholz, so we cannot enact conscription, we cannot produce tanks or aircraft, we cannot train units, disband units, or edit templates. So we are stuck with the troops that we have. Let's see, we've got secret rearmament, so we can at least produce stuff and research stuff faster. We've got scarred nations, so we have barely any population to recruit and very little war support. And Skonspiricija, so we have less political power. Alright. The only thing we can start with right now is rule credits. Okay. Start with that. We'll kickstart our research. So the entirety of this... Wait. Is it I can't build them, or can I research them still? Oh, I can't produce them. Okay. So I can still research planes. So I'm going to do that later, but I'm not allowed to actually build any. I'd assume that would be really important to the whole making tanks thing. Like, the research process. But I guess not. I'm going to start by working on civs. Oh my god, they give me a whole block of text. My favorite. If only I could get it. There we go. The assassination of Archduke Ferdinand by Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist, was the catalyst which caused the beginning of the Weltkrieg. Through Serbian forces... No, I think that is though. Though Serbian forces fought valiantly and earned the world's respect by stalling the Central Powers' advance for months, by late 1915, the entirety of the country ended up occupied. Divided into Austro-Hungarian and Bulgarian occupation zones, Serbia was exploited and burned, its adversaries seeking to enact revenge upon what they saw as a barbaric regime. This only emboldened resistance in the territory, however, and things on both sides of the front changed by 1918. Austria-Hungary, pressured by its German allies, finally began peace talks, while the Serbian resistance in Corfu, seeing the pitiful state of the Entente, came to the conclusion that even a bitter peace is better than annexation. King Petar abdicated and his son took the throne as Alexander II, who signed the punitive Treaty of Vartholz in 1919. It restored a rump Serbia in the Austro-Hungarian occupied zone, forever tied to the Austrian sphere of influence. An emboldened socialist movement in Belgrade, inspired by the Russian and French revolutions and the opposition of the People's Radical Party, got Alexander II to respond harshly. Political life was suspended, the socialist movement banned, then a royal dictatorship ushered in to maintain order in the defeated nation. This act only inflamed tensions in the country by the end of it, however, and it boiled over to revolution in 1925. The military, organized into the Konspiracija, secret society, made an act of defiance against their king and orchestrated an assassination of Alexander II on December 3rd, which led the royal dictatorship to its collapse. Prime Minister Vojislav Vejkovic surrendered to the opposition, which proclaimed a Serbian republic. After a brief diplomatic standoff, the provincial government of Ljubomir Stojanovic recognized the Treaty of Vartholz, and Vienna recognized the Republican government in turn. Today, Serbia stands as a burning symbol of democracy in the Balkans, at least on the surface. In truth, however, while the government may proclaim heartwarming goals like peace, welfare, and prosperity, nothing in the Serbian government happens without the approval of the Konspiracija. The military secret police, deliberately styled after the Black Hand, seeks one thing and one thing only: the liberation of all Serbs outside of the Republic's borders. Again, in the shadows, another conspiracy lurks as well: the White Hand, led by Peter Zivkovic, which waits for a chance to overthrow the Republican interregnum and restore the underage son of Alexander II. As 1936 begins, Serbia is still nominally a client state of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but this grip grows looser by the second, and once it finally falls, all of Serbia's enemies may tremble. That was a lot of text. Okay, so I kind of like how it's handling this better. The Serbian elections of 1936. The term of the second president of the Serbian Republic, Dragomir Vasic, is coming to a close, and on the 5th of October, new elections will be held in the Serbian Skupština. According to the Constitution of 1926, the Skupština is an unicameral legislature elected by all male and female citizens of the Serbian Republic in free, universal, secret ballots for a 5-year term. The government structure of Serbia is semi-presidential. The president is elected by the legislature, much like the prime minister, but has considerable power in domestic policy and the appointment of public officials, alongside the usual duties and representation of the state in foreign affairs. While the prime minister is dependent on the backing of the Skupština, the president serves a predetermined 5-year term no matter what is taking place in the legislature. That is not to say that he is all-powerful, however. He needs a parliamentary support for pretty much all appointments in the legislature. The electoral campaign in Serbia began late last year and continues into 1936. As the world veers closer to war and to the Balkans, the force which wins this election may decide the fate of the country for ages to come. So now we have a tab on elections. Oh, and the conspiracy. And the road to unification. Okay, we'll read these one at a time. The term of the second president of the Serbian Republic, Dragomir Vasic, is coming to a close, and on the 5th of October, new elections will be held in the Serbian Skupština. There, a new coalition shall be formed and elect a president and prime minister to guide Serbia for the next 5 years. As the world veers closer to war, and so do the Balkans, the force which wins this election may get to decide the fate of the country for ages to come. Elections in Serbia will take the form of a series of events in which the player has the choice to boost or weaken one of the following political parties: Republican, Radicals, Social Workers, Socialists, and Agrarians. The Republicans, the Radicals, and the Socialists will gain the plurality once the polls close and coalition formation will begin. Because Serbian politics are heavily parliamentary, however, simply gaining a plurality is not enough. Strong coalition partners are needed to successfully form a majority, and therefore, while responding to events and influencing the party's strength, one needs to consider what they will find enough crossbench support. So, current likely plurality holder is the Republicans, and their likely coalition was with the Socialists. That's interesting. So, I'm assuming if we end up with a weird part where, like, some people, we have, like, the social workers and maybe, like, the agrarians, maybe they don't work together at all, so it, like, forces the government to collapse. Conspiracy is a military secret society formed within the Serbian army in the 1920s under the guidance of former members of the Black Hand. It proclaimed goal of unification of all Serbs and the motto of Serbian identity, strong Serbian nation. Its ideological beliefs are all across the political spectrum and do not hold it back. Its members did not hesitate to assassinate King Alexander and usher in a more malleable Serbian Republic. Their influence is pervasive and public, but its wide net of contacts will grant it access to powerful bonuses if we take advantage. So we can rearm, switch our form of payment, we can switch payment to political power, support resistance, tap to Chetnik associations, increase populism, contact rifle manufacturers, or service propaganda. It gives us population, that's not bad. I'm gonna hold off on getting the steel. Like, we're already working on a little bit of guns, but for now I really want to get my civilian factories on track, or at least as much as I can. Shots in the dark. The news reports are still flying in, and the story is still being pieced back together, but here's what is already known. Mayor Zivan Gnezvic, an induct into the Conspiracia's secret society and an officer in the Serbian army, was making his way home in Belgrade alongside a fellow soldier, when the two of them realized that they were being followed. Not wishing to take the risk, the two men hastened their pace, hoping to either come across civilians to use as cover, or a phone booth to call the police, but neither came. Instead, the mysterious assailant opened fire, seriously wounding Gnezvic and killing his peer. Wounded, the officer was dragged out of sight, and so was the corpse behind him. It took the police 2 days to be informed about the officer's disappearance, and a search across Belgrade was immediately initiated. Niznik was found, but by then it was already too late, as he was long since dead. Police officers found his corpse in the outskirts of the city, and it was left with a message. Thus upon all enemies of God, the King, and the White Hand. Okay, so they're doing stuff. Time to start with the Chetniks. Could do some hidden artillery purchases with some political power. This will not put us over our maximum popularity. Okay. Let's see. We could do immunization and literacy. Gives us a population bonus. Or we could do regional tractor stations. Let's start with the immunizations. That will give us some population boosts, which I think will be important. Russia is going socialist. Interesting. Might be something we think about. Uh-oh. Black Monday hit Serbia. Serbia was devastated by the Weltkrieg more than any other nation. It lost a quarter of its population, and the entire nation was left plundered. Half of it was annexed by Bulgaria, while the rest had to accept massive concessions to the Austrian Empire. And yet, despite it all, Serbia endured, slowly rebuilding a state. Stable, if weakened economy based around agricultural production and free trade. The reforms by King Alexander II's Prime Minister, Vojislav Veljkovic, were not undone by the Republican government, and so the stable Serbian dinar he fought for remained throughout the 1930s. The collapse of the Berlin stock market has undone most of that work. Though Serbia is not as tied to the German economy as other countries in the region, the collapse of worldwide trade has tanked our agricultural exports and so left much of the economy in a void. A package of response measures and reforms is already being prepared, but the populace hit straight in the pocket no longer holds as much trust in the Republican Party. After all, they should have prevented this. Uh-oh. So now we have respond to Black Monday. We have 60 days to do that. I could stop this, but I'm not going to. So we need to stabilize the economy. I don't think we have a way to do that fast. I'm gonna be real. Oh, everything. Oh my god, we have so many things. Let's start with this one. Lijotic speech. There we go. The right wing of the Serbian political spectrum, beyond the People's Radical Party and the Agrarians, is mainly composed of monarchists. Among them, two movements are the most notable. The State Party of Serbian Democrats was the sole legal party of Alexander II's royal dictatorship, and lingers on as a small, moderate monarchist party, concentrated in a few constituencies where they are the strongest, and they were too insignificant to threaten the Republican order. They were allowed to remain legal after the revolution. The second is a party formed after the revolution for a new generation of monarchists, named Budinj Awakening, and its leader, Dmitry Lijotic, has been slowly making a name for himself. Speaking before the Skupština, Lijotic addressed what he perceived the key issue of the Serbian Republic, the death of God in a nation overtaken by lust and contempt, and the daily, endless crushing of souls by the sledgehammer of capitalism, which the past governments have enabled with their policies. The politician's esoteric way of speaking convinced few, and made him few allies in the legislature, but it was characteristic of a so-called Mita Bogomojak, devotionalist Mita. Even back when he was an official in King Alexander II's royal dictatorship and a deputy from Smederevo, Lijotic was unnerving to his peers. He declared his service to the, whatever that is, to be divine providence, that the Serbian people to have a God-bestowed mission in the world, and his orthodox faith was beyond even the fanatical. Leading a far-right extremist nationalist royalist party, Lijotic is a minnow on the political stage and so been allowed to remain for now, but who knows where he might end up if the circumstances change. We got paternal autocrat change. Armen and Sofia. Eyeing Bulgaria like a hawk stalking prey, we see that our neighbor is entering a period of political strife. Years of resentment towards the authoritarian regime of Tsar Ferdinand, his son Crown Prince Boris, and their lackeys are finally exploding, as a considerable faction in the Bulgarian parliament are now openly campaigning for the restoration of full constitutionalism and the abolition of the State Protection Act. While our only interest in Bulgaria is the destruction of this hatred hegemon, we in fact have our men in Sofia. The Bulgarian Agrarian National Union, Alexander Stambolicki, is the radical Republican faction of the BZNS, an agrarian political party which was shattered by the Bulgarian government for their opposition to the war, and still struggles to pick up the pieces. It is led by Alexander Stambolicki himself, a man who has no illusion of ever working with the royalist regime again, and a rare Bulgarian politician who proudly calls himself a Yugoslav. The authorities in Bulgaria still believe that he is hiding somewhere in Sofia, when in reality he is safe in Serbia, from where he is able to command the faction of the BZNS. He still keeps some contact with the parliamentary factions in the BZNS, able to exchange information and sway a few of them to support the abolition of the State Protection Act, which, as Stambolicki assures, will be the first step towards the agrarian takeover of Bulgaria, which will be able to work with Serbia in peace. Should we support this gamble, or instead back more reliable options, such as Chetnik resistance to NIS? We could do 20 deputies now stand for the abolition of the act, or no. Yeah, we'll support the abolition of the act. We'll see if we can make them a republic. Oh, I didn't do this one. Montenegrin federalist gains in local elections. Several months prior to the parliamentary elections in the Serbian Republic, local elections for mayors and district councils have been held in Montenegro, and the Montenegrin Federalist Party has acquired an impressive victory. A majority of the mayors, district councils, and other notable elected positions in Montenegro are now held by their members. In addition, the CFS also plans to contest the Montenegrin seats in the parliamentary elections, and both of its leaders, Sekula Jurno and Novika Radovic, are standing for the Skupština. The CFS is a moderate successor of the Montenegrin Greens, a guerrilla movement loyal to the House of Petrovic Nijegos, which operated in Montenegro during the 1920s when the unification of Serbia and Montenegro into a puppet kingdom under that was proclaimed by the Central Powers. These guerrillas organized in the mountainous region and remained active until the Republican Revolution. While radical members of the movement continued the struggle, as they could hardly expect the restoration of the House, even in a Montenegrin federal unit inside Serbia, moderates and Montenegrin politicians led by in Radovic sought to negotiate. President Jasa Prodanovic granted them amnesty and signed several concessions for the Montenegrins into law, such as an increased local autonomy and recognition of the Montenegrin language. Now that 1936 rolls around, the CFS remains a powerful force in Montenegro, and their deputies in the Skupština may prove crucial in swinging the election, despite who they choose to work with. They work with no one, form an alliance with the Republicans, or negotiate with the Socialists for federalization. Let's work with the Socialists. I think that's funny. Revenge. Once again, the law enforcement of the Republic has been mobilized after reports of a committed high-profile murder, and this time it only took a few hours before officers in Kragujevac were met with a horrifying sight in the poor district of the city. Several officers from the Serbian army, relieved a few years ago because of the suspicions that they belonged to the White Hand, stabbed and hanged by their feet publicly. A few children playing football around the block explained that some strange-looking men hanged them there not too long ago. Only the dimmest failed to realize who was behind these murders. Not only was Mayor Zivan Knežević a respected member of the Serbian Cultural Club and the secret organization behind it, but he was also the brother of Radoje Knežević, a commander in the Serbian Armed Forces, a leading member of the Republican Party in the conspiracy. While the military is understandably silent about the events, and Knežević nearly expects his solemn grief at his brother's death, it's almost certain that these assassinations were made as an act of righteous revenge. And again, much like everyone expected, the police closed the case a few days later, stating that the investigation will pause for the time being as no possible suspect has been found. We are a stable democratic republic. Please believe us. Alright, well, we just lost some of the paternal autocracy. Let's keep getting that manpower and contacting arms makers. Purchase some artillery. Emboldened socialist movement. The ongoing economic crisis has dealt a serious blow to the mining industries in Montenegro and manufacturing in Belgrade, and the workers there are understandably not unhappy. This creates a potent radicalized mass for the radicals on the left to take advantage of and build their support with. The Socialist Workers' Party and its call for labor empowerment is attractive to average Joven out on the street. They compete for this niche with the Socialist Party of Serbia, however, a reformist breakaway from the SRP, composed of its moderate wing, which generally serves as the mediator between the Republicans and the Socialist workers. Though still inherently socialist, they state that the material conditions in Serbia are not fit for the revolution, and that socialism can instead be achieved through the parliamentary process. To which side will the masses bend to? Do the workers or the socialists? Let's take a look. Let's lean it towards the socialist workers. Now it is probably a socialist worker-led popular front. So we'd have some Republicans and the socialists. Oh, I can do rural grants now? Oh, I can. Let's develop Morava. Okay, I'm going to try and stabilize the economy. That's going to take 35 days. Do I have enough for that? I don't think I do. I might just get it. Unrest among the Chetniks. The Serbian Chetniks recounted history starting with the liberation struggle against the Ottoman Empire, where they served as auxiliary partisan forces in the Balkans to support the regular Serbian army. After the Weltkrieg, the Treaty of Wartholz ordered all armed Chetnik associations to be dissolved, but the veterans of the partisan struggle remained and initially stood in favor of King Alexander II and his regime. By 1925, however, only the hardcore royalists among the ranks chose to resist the fall of the monarchy, leaving the first few months of the Republic somewhat unstable, whereas many stood down and accepted the change in regime if it meant that the dream of Greater Serbia can continue. Chetnik associations have since been re-established and began to rearm themselves, but the loyalty to republicanism is still questioned. The rise of the Socialist Workers' Party has left the loyalist Chetniks far more worried than, however. While they can begrudgingly tolerate a republic, a possible socialist regime is completely intolerable. And so Chetnik voivodes, such as the Ilija Trifunovic Birkanin, have reached out to the government demanding something be done, or else they will take matters into their own hands. The threat of monarchist sympathies among the Chetniks has remained ever since the revolution, so it cannot be simply ignored, and chances are that no matter what we will do, large sections of the military will no longer trust us. Chetniks back him, so we get radicals, the conspiracy, or they are a threat, start pressuring the Chetniks. We'll start pressuring the Chetniks. The rise of the conspiracy. Oh, I'm kind of doing weird political things. Though Serbia owes its republican democracy to the conspiracy and the other secret conspirators within the Serbian army, it appears that their influence over the country has grown greater than anyone could have anticipated. The cabinet, which is not approved by the militarists, has little chance of surviving more than a few months. More and more resources are being diverted strictly to army matters, and nationalist fanaticism is growing more and more powerful in public society. Some even suspect a possible coup or worse. After all, how could one possibly trust an organization inspired by the Black Hand? Are you sure you know what you're doing? No, I'm not. Alright. Well, we're hoping for the socialist, but I can't do any more of this. Republican election strategy. Originally founded as the Republican Democratic Party, the Republicans consider themselves to be the successors to the independent radicals of the pre-Weltkrieg era, its left-wing Republican sympathetic faction in particular. It was founded by Ljubomir Stojadinovic and Jasa Prodanovic in 1920 and instantly moved into opposition to Alexander II's royal dictatorship. Being the most vocal democratic faction in opposition to the king, it swiftly built up support and championed the Republican Revolution. In the Serbian Republic, it is more left-wing to the two main established parties, the others being the People's Radical Party. Into the election of 1936, the Republicans go in with everything to lose. They have been in power for the last 10 years under Presidents Prodanovic and Vasic, and now face opposition from the left and the right. They seek to remain in power. They need to prevent the center from collapsing and ensure that neither the radicals nor the socialist workers are able to muster a majority without them. What should their strategy be? Stay calm, remain calm, attack the radicals, weaken the right, or attack the socialists? Let's attack the radicals. I mean, I don't know if this is going to do anything considering the populace, but we can hope for the best. I mean, the economy is about to die, so I don't know how this is going to go. Zenatism. The loss in the Belgrade marked a fundamental change in Serbian society, and its culture was no exception. An absolute majority of Serbian males died in the war, and almost a quarter of its total population, while the few who remained had to return to burned homes, looted towns, and abandoned farms and broken dreams. To cope, many turned to art to express their frustration and sorrow, and yet the onset of Alexander II's royal dictatorship stymied the development of Serbian art and culture under heavy censorship. The Republican Revolution of 1925 let this pent-up energy loose, and the following decade has left its mark on the Serbian culture as a period of avant-garde art, literature, and cultural cultural critique. Few movements were more exemplary of this time than Zenatism, named after the arts magazine Zenit. Founded by Ljubomir Micic, Ivan Gol, and Bosko Tokin, it publishes articles on modern society, art reviews, and cultural publications. While contributors to the magazine are numerous, a common strand of anti-war, anti-nationalist, and anti-capitalist thought runs through it. And above them all, modern Western society. What was the reason why Serbia suffered so much? Mikic and his associates ponder in the pages of Zenit. It is because Serbia, having chosen to abandon its unique Balkan spirit and communal, peaceful culture, sold its soul to a greater European civilization and the cold, heartless machine of modern capitalism. That machine gave the modern tools of war to Serbia, which she killed itself. Some describe Zenatism as anarcho-primitivist, pointing out their scathing critique of modern technology and its lifeless lifestyle, while others see it as taking their thought too literally. As 1936 turns, Zenit and the Serbian avant-garde continue their course, even though as years pass and memory of the Velta devastation grows duller, they become seen as unpatriotic rather than visionary. So we get some syndicalism. Alright. I guess we'll modernize Belgrade? Oh, we did it! I did it! Offer from the conspiracy. The conspiracy has been observing the election from the shadows, and the growth of the socialist movement in Serbia has left them concerned. There is no threat of a revolution, at least not yet, and the moderate faction of the SRP is firmly under the secret society's control, but they nevertheless present an unexpected factor in Serbian politics. And when the restoration of Greater Serbia is on the line, the thing that which conspiracy wants the most is no unwanted surprises. So the military offers to provide support to the Republican Party and start a secret intimidation campaign among the socialist ranks. By pressuring some of their most vocal figures to shut their mouths and fall in line, the party will surely lose steam quickly. Do it or no? No. We're still like a decent way away from the election, though. Why? Why are you over here? I need to look at this. I guess I'll just never know what we're building. Destitution in the countryside. 3/4 of the Serbian adult population are engaged in agriculture, and the absolute majority of them are subsistence farmers, only barely growing enough food to support themselves and their families. The economic crisis has thus impacted these farmers severely. Many racked up debts in months following the stock market crash and have lost their homes as a result, while others struggle to support themselves with the little land they have. This made agrarian issues an important talking point in the election, as several parties have been isolated as the frontrunners in the valuable farming voting bloc. The Agrarian Party, run by Milan Gavrilovic and Jovan Jovanovic Pijon, have traditionally represented farming interests, but have yet to escape from the opposition. The Republicans have traditionally been an urban center party. We're back at it again, Mr. Young Critic. Have traditionally represented farming interests, but have yet to escape the opposition. The Republicans have traditionally been an urban center party, but many of their members have been building support blocks in the rural Uzic and Montenegro regions throughout the past decade. And finally, the socialist workers, with their program of radical land redistribution, cannot wait to take advantage of this. Let's go. Gonna go full-on socialist-y because it's looking good for them up here. Alright, let us do regional tractors. We're going right into it. But I don't know if this is gonna work. Okay, right now we're in a joint socialist faction. You know, we already did, we did democracy in the Balkans. What's socialism in the Balkans? So, you weren't here for it, but how the elections for Serbia works, at least as first election, we have like 5 parties, and I make various decisions to form a coalition government because not one group can rule. So right now, I have a coalition between the socialist workers and the socialists that look like they're going to win the election. However, there's also the main conspiracy group, which is essentially the Black Hand, who might throw a wrench in that plan. I don't know. The Green Shirts. The People's Radical Party, hoping to mobilize more support for their electoral campaign, have begun to form uniformed parliamentary organizations to serve as the party's arm in the countryside. These organizations, named the Green Shirts after their uniforms, are the idea of Milan Stojadinovic, the leader of the party, and are very clearly inspired by the success of the Iron Guard next door. Though it may seem odd for a liberal democratic party to copy the policies of a radical national populist movement, it's also not illegal. Dragomir Vasic's and the Serbian Republican Party now have to make a decision on how to respond. Fires fought with fire, our own paramilitary, or curtail it. We'll just curtail it. Yeah, it's an interesting political system where you can make a lot of different decisions that change things. Okay. Oh, we captured an Austrian operative. But, like, I also have this section. So right now, we are under sanctions, and we can't do a lot of stuff, like build armies and get, and build certain equipment. But we could use the conspiracy group to change that, but it gives them popularity. So I don't want to do it too much, or else I'll end up getting them ruling, and I kind of don't want to. The Vidovdan speech. I wish I could speak English sometimes. I mean, Serbian, I guess. The day of St. Vitus, or Vidovdan, in the Serbian language, is considered to be the most important date in the national identity of Serbia. It is at this day in 1389 that the medieval kingdom of Serbia defended its independence against the Ottoman Empire in the Battle of Kosovo, an event which forged the national myth of the Serbian people for centuries to come. Ever since 1918, however, the commemoration of the day has been silent and modest. It was the day when Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in Sarajevo, an act many Serbs still cannot live past, for it has brought them so much destruction and loss. During the reign of Alexander II, a small monument was erected in Gazimestan to honor those who fell in the battle, but the observations still remain small. 1936 was different. President Dragomir Vasic himself attended the observations in Gazimestan, drawing large masses of Serbs to visit the monument for the first time. There, to thousands of his countrymen, he made a speech and the language was shocking. For the first time since the end of the Weltkrieg, the leader of Serbia declared that what they all experienced 20 years ago was a national humiliation. It robbed Serbia of its ancestral lands and the people in Nice and Macedonia, and Serbia must not rest until it finds a way to return them to Belgrade's fold. The heroes and martyrs commemorated during Vidovdan fought for a free and united Serbia, after all, and the only way to honor their memory is to overthrow the shackles holding Serbia back today. The speech was met with applause and patriotic chants, while the Vasic's political opponents may denounce this as electoral pandering. Everyone could tell this marked a sharp upturn in the history of Serbia, that it will no longer abide by the treaty and forge an independent destiny instead. So we're going to remove the treaty, we're openly rearming, and we will get Vivodon's speech, which gives the Republican support, enable editing of all templates in the country, and training and disbanding them. Awesome. And the Bulgarians will find us. Okay. Radical election strategy. The People's Radical Party is one of the oldest political parties in Serbia, founded as a liberal reformist party in 1881. It defined Serbian politics before the Weltkrieg, dominating the political scene under Prime Ministers Sava Grujevic and Nikola Pasic. In championing moderate reform, it had a falling out with the monarchy immediately after the war ended, however, as Alexander II's personal distaste for the Pasic led to his dismissal. the party moving to the opposition, and finally to the underground. They reluctantly supported the Republican Revolution of 1925 and stands as more right of wing to the two main parties. The radicals, led by Milan Stojadinovic, are in a comfortable position, while the left is infighting the right and is largely united, as the radicals and agrarians have a lot of shared ground, while minor parties like the Democratic State Party and the Chetniks royalist radicals are nothing to worry about. Should this stable right be maintained, only the radicals may be able to form a government once the election concludes. Keep calm, carry on, support the agrarians, we need their backing, or go on the offensive and attack both opponents. I'll have them go on the offensive. I just want to see where that puts us. Because that's weakening the Republicans, which just got stronger, even if it's slightly weakening us. Alright. So we can now actually, like, rearm. I really wish this menu would like to show me things. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to save and reload real quick. Maybe we'll be able to see what I'm building. Alright. So now we have Show Serbia's Teeth. We need to do Restore Conscription, Raise Reserve Divisions, and leave the Vartholz Free Trade Area. Oh, so we have this side of the focus tree now. Interesting. Let's see, let's do... I don't want to do this because I want to keep free trade. So I think we'll probably do Raise Reserve Divisions or Restore Conscription. No, this is after the first one. This is all after the first war. We're trying to get... So after the First World War, we lost. And it didn't go very well. So now we're prepping for the next war. Oh, I didn't do that in time. Unfortunate. They wanted that done really fast. Holy heck. Yeah, I would have had to have canceled my focus. Socialist election strategy. The Socialist Workers' Party was founded in 1919 as a merger of the Social Democratic Party of Serbia, Serbian trade union organizations, and Montenegrin socialists, and its ideology has since been left a syncretic mix of all ideologies to the left of the establishment. Syndicalists, Marxist socialists, Social Democrats, and Agrarian socialists all found a home in this party. It was banned by the Obzana during Alexander II's regime, but continued operating on the underground, supporting the Republican Revolution, and joined parliamentary politics at the leftmost legal party in the Skupština. Yeah, we haven't done the Belgrade Pact yet. It has not happened. The Socialist Workers' Party has to fight an uphill battle in the election. Even if they can harness enough anti-establishment rhetoric to achieve a plurality, they always have to worry about the possibility of anti-socialist grand coalition between the Republicans and radicals. Therefore, their goal is not just to outgrow their opponents, but to ensure their allies on the left can outweigh the rightists. What shall their strategy be? Vanguard Party needs support, send the feelers for left wing's Popular Front, or attack the right, don't let them go strong. We're gonna just focus on the on our party themselves, because we're slowly growing stronger where we just need the socialists. But yeah, it's only 1936. We haven't done the Belgrade Pact yet. I need... The election has to end first. Okay. We're gonna restore conscription, get our manpower back up. We've got some more divisions. That would explain why when I was playing Bulgaria, there were so many more divisions in Serbia. They just spawned more divisions. We got some wars going on over here. I like the guy that's on East Turkestan. I like his hat. He's got a fun mustache, too. Let's start working on something else. Let's work on guns. Get some radios. And we'll start working on planes. Right? One of these days, we're going to play an East Turkestan game. One of these days. It'll probably be very painful, but I think it could be fun. I don't know, like, if there's any expansion options, but I think it would be pretty interesting. It would be a very quick game. The election of 1936. Almost a year of campaigning and politicking has passed, and now the final steps remain. The polling stations have been established across the country, and the votes are cast to determine the victor of the election. The votes have been counted with little more than a few hitches, and they reveal that the result in the new Skupština will be that the Socialist Party gains a majority. So we get SRP. Elections will take place every 5 years. Lose some stability. We get victory for the people, and then we have to prove ourselves to the people, defang the army, and consolidate the Popular Front. Alright, victory for the people. So, what is this? Against all odds, the Socialist Workers' Party has prevailed in the election of 1936 and gained a popular mandate for sweeping changes to the Serbian political system. Though our enemies are numerous, we shall weather the storm and bring the light of socialism. So we need to quickly do a lot of stuff. The legacy of Svetozar Markovic, called the Serbian Nikolai Dobroljubov. Oh my gosh. Svetozar Markovic was the first true socialist philosopher in the Balkans, with a program of social change that resonated with many in his home. As some say, all of us in Serbia who are Democrats or Socialists learn the political ABCs from Markovic. If we remind the people that we truly stand for his legacy, they will give us a second chance to prove ourselves. Alright, so this will add 120 days to all of these missions. I'm not the best with words. Alright, so here is defending the revolution. We need to own Niche to defang the army? Oh, okay, we need to go to war then. Coup attempt! A mere few days after the election concluded, the streets of Belgrade have begun to buzz with activity. Not only were the rumors of royalist sympathizers organizing a putsch against the socialist-influenced government true, but the situation is even worse than they initially believed. The White Hand, led by the former commander of the Royal Guard, Peter Zivkovic, has been playing the strings from the shadows. This military clique, loyal to the House of That, played a pivotal role in Alexander's royal dictatorship and never quite dissolved, only moving to the underground to foster their resistance. Belgrade awoke to the sound of gunfire as Royalist Brigade marched in, locking down the city and surrounding the Skupština, taking Trifun Krasilovic and the members of the legislature hostage. Petar Zivkovic gave his two demands, ending the exile of the House of That and the appointment of him as prime minister. Technically, Zivkovic isn't demanding for anything more, but logically he will strong-arm the restoration of the monarchy within days, unceremoniously ousting the republic. Members of the legislature were able to put a telegram request for the military assistance before the phone lines were cut, but unwilling to know whether it actually was received. Here, the members of the Skupština have two options to choose from. Either they can hope for the rest of the Serbian army is behind them, or take to the streets and rally the people into a popular guard which will resist it. We can rally the people to resist the coup, or rely on the army. This result will depend on whether the royalist Chetniks have gained influence in the military, or this will depend on... Oh, they're both the same. Okay, I'm gonna drop a save here, because I just want to see if I screwed myself. But I'm gonna rally the people, because we're the socialists, so we gotta be with the people. The Republic endures! We did it. Zivkovic's coup collapsed within hours. The soldiers rallied to the side of the White Hand, faced off against reinforcements, and fearing that the Republicans will only be able to rally more support as the time passes, most of them stood down after brief skirmishes. Petar Zivkovic and the royalist officers commanding the conspiracy have been seized and arrested. For their conspiracy to overturn the constitution and destroy the democratic republic, all of them received harsh prison sentences, and the White Hand conspiracy has dissolved for good. The threat of the royalist resistance has finally ceased. Alright, so we lose some manpower, we lose paternal autocracy by a lot, and we get socialists win the election. Gaming. We are gaming. Let's go. I'm gonna start training the army. That would probably be pretty good. Socialists win Serbian election. Established at the end of 1925, the young Republic of Serbia has recently held the third national election in history. Between Black Monday, renewed ethnic violence in Bulgaria, and creeping rumors of a shadow government in the military, the 1936 election were made out to be the most contentious yet. In an incredible upset, the victor of the elections is neither the progressive Republicans nor the radical rivals, but the far-left Social Workers' Party, who have formed a popular front with the rest of the left-leaning parties. This development triggered a failed coup attempt by nationalist Chetnik paramilitaries and worried the military as a whole. While the SRP is receptive to military figures for now, observers doubt that the peace will last long. Okay. So let's just keep going with this. I'm trying to think, like, I probably should do the Belgrade Pact next, and then get ready to invade Bulgaria. Just so we can take Nice, because we need to do that as one of our things. Yeah, a lot of these are just, we need to go take Niche. Okay, those have 441 days, so I'm going to quickly do Congress of Belgrade, and we're going to hope for the best. The Congress of Belgrade. The cooperation of the Balkan nations against a common foe, despite their internal disagreements, is a path well trodden by history already. The Balkan League, formed between Serbia, Bulgaria, and Greece to defeat the Ottoman Empire in the Balkans, was a prime example of that, even though it disintegrated into the Second Balkan War mere months after victory. Today, Serbia, Romania, and Greece stare down against another hegemon, the Tsardom of Bulgaria, and each of them have territories to reclaim. Almost 2 decades, the thought of such an alliance occurring was unthinkable. The 3 Balkan states had been dismantled, weakened, disarmed, and the eye of the great powers of Europe ever watchful. By the 1930s, however, the situation had changed conclusively. The ever-constant frailty of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and thus lacking will to intervene in the Balkans, have already given the Balkan miners a chance to rearm. And now it has given a chance for them to plan together. Bipartisan summits and diplomatic talks have been taking place between Serbia and Romania since 1932, and Serbia and Greece since 1934. And it has all culminated in the Congress of Belgrade, a 14-day summit in the capital of Serbia. It is a cultural event as much as a political one. The diplomatic planning between the foreign ministers of the 3 states taking place in parallel with dialogue between the universities of Belgrade and Bucharest regarding research and student exchanges, for example. Regardless, by the end of the Congress, the delegations of the 3 states released a 14-point resolution, the most alarming of which was a recognition that only the self-determination of people, according to their ethnic allegiances, may be considered a just path to sovereignty and territorial claim, and a call for a new Balkan order to implement this principle, presumably at Bulgaria's expense. Alright. Yeah, I think that's the goal. Well, we already own Kosovo. We start with Kosovo. They have to take that from us. I am a little worried about Albania maybe joining. I know they'll at least send volunteers, but we should be okay for now. This is still not fixed. German Empire announces support. That's unfortunate. Australia announces support. Unfortunate. We're gonna reinforce the Bulgarian lines. I at least have factories, which is good. We are researching planes. I want to get fighters as much as possible so that we can hold the line. I want to see if maybe we could try and annex Bulgaria, but Bulgaria can actually get kind of strong, which is a little scary. It just kind of depends what they do with the Turks. If they decide they want to stay with them or if they want to fight back against them.